Hello, I'm here with Blythe and Pauly Comtois from Hearst Business Media. Fellas, thank you so much for taking the time with me today.
Thank you.
Let's get started with this thing called DevOps that everybody's talking about. A lot more people talking about it in 2016 than we're talking about it in 2013. It seems to start taking on different meanings. Some folks might argue it's not staying true to what it was created as. Some folks are like, it needs to spread and broaden and diversify. And so I'd like to ask each of you, starting with you, Pauly, what does DevOps mean for you?
It started out for us really in its sort of classic approach, which is predominantly really bridging that gap between developers and operations. I think we've really got a good handle on that. It's not perfect, of course, but we're really making great progress in that area. And we're looking again at pushing it outside of just developers and operations to encompass security and QA, product management, product owners, even in the beginning of the pipeline, so that we can work with sales folks that are out with the customers, right? And so if you really look at it as a dogma of collaboration and open and honest communication, that can benefit any group, right? And what we want to do is focus right now more on the sort of divide between the product folks and that handoff to developers. And so for us, it's again, sort of just really sticking to what I think are the roots of DevOps, which is just being able to have that open, honest communication, even if you're not agreeing with one another.
Yep. At least you're getting it out there,
right?
And we're addressing the issues at the root.
Absolutely, and it's seeking alignment, right? And so, I'm a big fan of look, you don't necessarily have to all agree with the idea, but you should all agree to support each other
and to understand each other's perspectives.
Right, empathy is critical.
What do you think, Aaron?
I have to agree with everything Paul said. I think it is broadening, like the actual the players in the system. Like, you've seen a lot more security and compliance. You see this with the offerings that Chef has. You see this inside of the companies and stuff. But you're also seeing, the non-technical aspect of like bringing value through the stream. Everyone has to be involved. So I've heard a couple different talks where like everybody's part of operations. And if you really take that approach to it, like, at the end of the day, you want to move your business value forward and make more profit. So the way you do that is through operating your business.
So you talk a lot about the concept of a lean enterprise, and I'd love to hear you kind of give us the elevator pitch on what does that mean to you, and how do you become one?
So any healthy business, even if you're like a really entrenched enterprise business, or if you're a startup, has two facets to it. You have exploit and explore. So you've got your existing business that you want to exploit, and what I think of the lean principle there is flow. You want to make sure that things are moving through your value stream and that you're eliminating waste all the way through. But then you also have to explore, because you have your current business that you're exploiting and making tons of money, but you have to have your next business where you're going to make your next millions. So as you're exploring, you want to make sure that like you have something that your market actually wants. Some people would go so far as to say, don't move even past a prototype until you have a healthy Kickstarter, right? So like you want to make sure that you have something that people are actually going to want to build, instead of spending 6 months on something that like
no one may want. That's very fair. So obviously you two are working together at Hearst Business Media to help different units really attain those types of values. What are some of the challenges, Pauly, that stand in the way of getting everybody on that same page?
For us, it's probably a classic problem, but it really ties into what Aaron was saying, in that at each business unit, the bulk of the revenue is produced by products that have been around for a while. And so instead of trying to figure out how to refactor or build those products up, we're looking at new ways of doing things and new and innovative greenfields. But we can't neglect
the current business.
We have to continue to support that. And the big challenge is creating these two environments without creating separatism between the teams. So you don't necessarily want to take a team and say, okay, you're only going to work on track one,
because then you're just creating another silo.
Right, exactly. And it doesn't create an opportunity for them to grow and to develop. And it also limits portability of your resources. I mean, we want to be able to not only move folks around within the business unit, within the teams, but ideally maybe at some point even allow them to move between business units, right? And so that we have this maximum flow where we can shift and move resources around ad hoc, right, at will. And that's a very powerful concept, and it works well. It's just we have to also be very cognizant of the ramifications of saying, okay, track 1, track 2.
Yeah.
One is not bad,
Yep.
right? You get this sort of negative connotation to track 1,
Yep.
And that's not true. Actually, it's the huge moneymaker, right?
Yeah.
It is what is enabling track 2
It's
to
what
even
built
exist.
a sustainable business.
Right, and the plowback is important as well, right? So we want to make sure that all of the cost savings that we can get out of track 1, we are then investing into track 2.
Yep.
And so that's really important, and I think it tells the story of how you can create lean in one environment
Yep.
to produce innovation in another.
That's really cool. And obviously a mindset is really important in doing that. Not only a mindset from the top down, but a mindset from the bottom up. And that's going to involve people almost certainly doing things differently, being willing to do things differently, and then working together based on those new behaviors. And that really boils down to how are you going to make some cultural changes. Talk to me a little bit about, starting with you, Paul. I'd love for both of you to address this. Coming from your respective careers thus far, and the journey that's been, how open source has played a role in that, and not just from a technology perspective, but the concept of a community where you may not work with them day to day in a given organization, but you do have a wider working group of people that you can source from, learn from, and then contribute back to.
Well, I think it's also a mindset of moving away from isolationism as too. I mean, in open source, it's not just about being part of the community, but it's about sharing ideas and sharing your creations. And I've learned in sort of corporate America, we tend to, whatever we create, we bring in tighter. In fact,
it's ours.
Right. And in fact, we're like, anything that you do on that computer during office hours is ours,
yeah.
right? And so if you think of that sort of classic mindset, what we're asking you to do is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So we're saying not only are we asking you to create whatever you want, but we're going to share it with the world. And in some cases, it's seen as, won't that be a loss of competitive advantage?
Yeah.
Not necessarily, right? I mean, obviously you don't want to share IP, right? You don't want
Yep.
to share protected information.
Or social security numbers.
Right. Or even like if you have something, right, that's a piece of code, that is a differentiator for your organization, you're obviously not going to share that whole thing. Maybe you share parts of it.
Yep.
But the idea is to garner support for a community so that we all work together. And it is a different mindset. It's a gestalt, right? It's a change that it really happens slowly over time. I think Capital One has done a great job of leading the way of saying, hey, we're not only a large organization, but we're also a large financial organization, and we're willing to go out and actually share what we're working on. And of course, we're not sharing secret sauce, but they are sharing things that make an impactful difference day to day for engineers.
And it's going to help everybody move forward.
And them included, right?
Yep.
All ships rise with the tide.
Yep.
And so I think that's an incredible shift for them, and I'm really thankful for them as a pioneer. And Hearst is doing the same thing. We're really focusing at Hearst Business Media on sharing everything that we're creating internally, the new stuff, so all that track 2 stuff.
That's fantastic.
And I think that we're going to try really hard to continue to build a community around what we do as well. So.
Awesome. Aaron?
So being a technical person, coming from the other side of actually consuming open source, I love to open source anything that I do. But when there's like an awesome product like Chef or any of the other products that we interact with, it's a really great feeling that like you do all this technical work to figure out what the problem is, and then you can contribute back the fix for it. So instead of like trying to reproduce something 10 times and then being like, oh, I'm going to throw that off into ticket land and maybe it'll make somebody's priority. It's like I did all that work and I can take a couple extra steps to make it better.
Yep.
And then you have like the amazing forums that we speak in.
Yep.
And you ask questions of like all the awesome chef people, and people are willing to answer your question. Like, so you get this lift of, I don't have to spend the next 10 hours like reading documentation and trying something over and over. Someone's like, oh, flippantly, like that's just this. And then it's no big deal to them, but to you it saves hours worth of time. So.
And I think what's so cool about what you two are doing and your team more broadly and Hearst in general is that, as you said, like you're not keeping everything great that you're innovating with only to yourselves, because you know that it will create a self-fulfilling cycle that's going to allow other people to create innovations that you may well leverage, both technology that you can use at the practitioner level and maybe processes or patterns that you can institute for the teams. And so certainly we're really appreciative of all the folks that are contributing and putting in, like yourselves. And I really appreciate the time today. So thank you so very much.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.